Hi everybody. A mental illness can be quite tough, challenging, but today in this video I want to talk about the understanding around an illness and the acceptance for those that are suffering with a mental illness. Now, everybody, each individual that is suffering with an illness, their symptoms may vary. How it affects them may be different to other people, even though they may have the same illness as, say, somebody else, but it can affect them differently. There are many different kinds of illnesses, but it's all about the understanding around it, getting to know your illness and the acceptance around it. Now, first of all, coming down with a mental illness can be quite daunting, wondering what's going on with your body, what is just going on in general. But the initial start is your diagnosis, like getting help, your diagnosis. But even then, when you've had that diagnosis, it takes a bit of time to actually understand your own illness, how it's affecting you, your coping, what's going to work for you to help you cope with it, like your coping strategies, because like the saying, everybody is different on their coping strategies. One thing might work for someone else and not for somebody else with an illness. So it's finding out what works for you with your coping strategies, getting to know your triggers. What are your triggers? What makes your illness worse? Gradually you start to know a bit more about your illness, which makes it that little bit easier, because once you know what's going on, like with your emotions, your feelings, your mind, whatever the illness is, how it's affecting you, you gradually learn to know what is going on a bit more. It's like practicing and learning, getting an insight into your illness and understanding around it, and taking back a little bit of control there with it. Because like I said, it's the fear, daunting, very tough, challenging. So it's all about, so once you've done that, that takes a bit of time, but it's the acceptance, accepting this is what is going on with me, my mind, my body, because the more, you could get to understand your illness, but it's the accepting as well what is actually wrong. It's the accepting. That can be a big thing with it. And normally, if you're pulling away from that and not accepting it for what it is, it's the suffering on top, the added suffering, the hatred towards it, the clinging to the hatred, the anger, self-pity, and so forth. And it's all about. And normally what happens is, it's like your thoughts that you may experience, them nasty thoughts, what makes you, how you're reacting to those thoughts, and knowing that they're just thoughts. They're just thoughts. You don't have to believe everything your mind tells you, but it's easier said at first. It takes time. And it takes practice to enable all that and able to understand it a bit more, and acceptance, the added putting away from the added suffering, the pain, the suffering that is all, that adds on to the suffering that you're already suffering with. Is learning to put away from that and accept this is what's going on. Don't believe everything your mind tells you. Your mind is suffering, it's confused, your body's confused, and it just makes up a load of like stories going on, and the instant reaction is you get drawn to it. You get drawn to it all, the believable side of things. But it's learning to put away from it, put away from that anger, that fear, that added suffering and pain on top, and it's setting it with the acceptance and feeling, once you start to learn all that, start to, feel a bit positive within yourself. You feel, you can even do the affirmations, kindness to yourself. Kindness, like saying positive things. Mindfulness is a very good thing for helping you with acceptance of what is going on within yourself. But with all that, like, it takes time, it takes practice. But what happens is it enables you to cope a little bit easier with your illness and get you on that right track of recovery. And it's all about once you start to take back a bit of control from that, not letting your illness control you, you take back a bit of control. You start to feel a bit stronger within yourself to enable you to do that. But, like I said, these things, they take time, they take practice, and it's all about the individual person. Like I said, everybody's different, but that's your initial two things of helping you to cope with your illness a little bit easier. And then with your coping strategies that you eventually find that work for you, that all rolls in together and you start to get a bit of confidence back. But it's not something that that works, that happens overnight. It's about having patience there and not doubting yourself. So it's all about getting an understanding around your illness, your own illness. Like I said, each individual's different. You can talk to somebody else that might have the same, illness as you. They may have similar symptoms, or it may vary, but it may affect them differently to yourself. So it's all about understanding your own illness, and alongside accepting what is going on. Because once that happens, once you get the understanding and the acceptance of what is going of it all, it just makes it a little bit easier to cope with and help you along your recovery. Because a lot of the time with the acceptance, if you think, even though the understanding, you're still not accepting it, you still feel hatred and anger, resentment around it. That just, it's like a magnet, and it just adds on to what you're already suffering, the pain, the suffering that you're already suffering with, and with your thoughts and how it's making you feel. So putting away from that resentment, that anger, and so forth, it just makes it a little bit easier to cope with and to deal with. That's, so this video was basically about someone that is, or people that are suffering with a mental illness, and getting an understanding around it, a bit of insight, taking back a bit of control, and the acceptance around it as well. But just like I said, you just have to be patient. you will get to where you want to get to, you know, and on that recovery. Everybody's different in their healing process, how long it takes and so forth. So you've just got to be patient, do the best you can. And now I hope this video will be of some help to somebody. Please share this video because a mental illness is important to, mental health is important. It shouldn't be ignored and so forth. So please, like I said, please share this video and give us a like.